Ethan stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the darkness between the trees. The air was cold enough to make his breath show like white smoke. Behind him, his friends laughed and shouted, trying to push him forward. "Come on, Ethan. Don't be scared," one of them yelled. He tried to smile, but his stomach felt tight. The trees ahead were tall and black, their branches twisting together like claws ready to grab anyone who walked too close. Even from here, the forest felt wrong. It wasn't just the darkness. It was the way the wind refused to blow inside. As if the trees kept all the air for themselves. "It's just a game," Ethan whispered to himself. Just a game. The plan was simple. They were going to play the box game. One person would hide a strange wooden box deep in the forest. Then, everyone would search for it. Whoever found it first won. That's all. Just a harmless game. At least, that's what Mia, the oldest of them, had said. Ethan took a step forward, the dry leaves crunching under his shoes. The sound was louder than it should have been, echoing in the quiet night. His friends were still talking and laughing behind him. But as soon as he crossed the first row of trees, their voices faded. He froze. It was like someone had turned a switch and cut him off from the world outside. The air was heavier here. He could hear his own breathing, fast and shallow, and a strange sound somewhere far away, like slow footsteps on wet ground. "Guys," he called, turning his head. No answer. Ethan stepped deeper into the forest. The moon was high above, but barely any light reached the ground. Shadows stretched and shifted between the trees. His shoes sank slightly into the damp soil, and a cold drop of water slid down the back of his neck from the leaves above. He told himself the sound he heard was just his friends moving around, but the rhythm of the footsteps was too slow and too heavy. It didn't sound like running or walking. It sounded like something dragging itself closer. The further he went, the more the forest seemed to close in on him. The space between the trees felt smaller, the air tighter. He kept glancing over his shoulder, expecting to see someone, or something, following him. By the time he realized he could no longer see the edge of the forest, the footsteps had stopped. And in the silence that followed, Ethan was sure he was not alone. Ethan followed a faint glow between the trees until he reached a small clearing. His friends were already there, standing in a loose circle. In the middle of them, placed on the ground, was the wooden box. It was about the size of a shoebox, but darker, almost black, as if it had been burned. Strange lines and shapes were carved all over its surface. Ethan didn't recognize the symbols, but just looking at them made his skin feel cold. Mia, the oldest in the group, stood next to the box. She had a flashlight in one hand and a smile on her face. But something about her smile made Ethan uncomfortable. It didn't reach her eyes. "All right," Mia said. "Here are the rules. One of us will hide the box deep in the forest. The rest will search for it. No one leaves the forest until it's found. No phones. No splitting up too far from each other." Ethan noticed she said it like she had done this before, even though she claimed it was just a random game she'd heard about. "What happens if we can't find it?" Sophie asked, her voice light but with a nervous edge. Mia's smile widened a little too much. "Then the box finds you." Everyone laughed, except Ethan. Something about the way she said it made him uneasy. Leo stepped forward. "I'll hide it first. Give me 5 minutes." He picked up the box. The moment his fingers touched it, Ethan saw him shiver slightly. "Cold?" Ethan asked. Leo shook his head. "No, just weird." Then he disappeared into the trees, the light from his small lantern bouncing as he walked away. They waited in the clearing, the night around them silent except for the sound of leaves falling. Ethan shifted his weight, feeling the damp soil under his shoes. He kept looking at the trees, thinking he saw movement in the shadows, but each time it was gone when he blinked. 5 minutes passed. Then 6. Then 7. "Leo's taking his time," Sophie muttered. "Maybe he's trying to make it harder," Mia said, but her voice was quieter now. From far away, there was a sound. Not footsteps this time, but a faint tapping, like wood knocking on wood. 3 slow taps, then silence. Ethan's skin prickled. Did you hear that? No one answered. Then, from the dark line of trees ahead, something moved. It was not Leo. The movement in the trees was gone as quickly as it came. It's probably Leo, Mia said, though she didn't sound certain. Come on, let's start. They split up into pairs. Ethan ended up alone because Sophie wanted to go with Mia, and the others had already wandered off. He didn't like the idea, but before he could say anything, they were gone, their flashlights bobbing away into the darkness. Ethan turned on his own flashlight and began walking. The beam shook in his hand, cutting through the shadows in thin lines. The forest seemed different now. The air felt heavier, and the silence was so deep it pressed against his ears. Every few minutes, he heard a faint sound, whispers. At first, he thought it was just the wind moving through the leaves, but the words were too clear. They were saying his name. Ethan. Ethan, come here. He stopped, turning his flashlight in all directions. Mia. Sophie. This isn't funny. No answer. Just the sound again, softer this time. As if whoever was whispering was closer. Ethan walked faster, sweeping the light along the forest floor. Dead leaves crunched under his shoes, and branches scraped against his jacket. He kept telling himself the box was just a game piece. That's all. Nothing strange about it. But the way the forest felt, like it was watching him, made that hard to believe. After a while, he saw something ahead. It was a tree with thick roots that rose out of the ground like a nest of snakes. The bark was cracked and peeling, and in the moonlight, the cracks formed the shape of a face, a screaming face. Ethan froze. His flashlight flickered once, then came back. He stepped closer, telling himself it was just a coincidence. But the longer he looked, the more he was sure the bark wasn't shaped like that by accident. The eyes in the face were hollow knots, and the mouth stretched wide, as if silently yelling. A soft crunch came from behind him. He spun around, light shaking. No one was there. But the whispers came again, louder this time. Ethan, over here. The sound seemed to come from two different directions at once. His heart was pounding now. He didn't want to keep going, but he also didn't want to be the one who quit first. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped deeper into the forest, unaware that every step was leading him further away from the others, and closer to something else. Ethan finally saw light ahead, the glow of Mia's flashlight. He hurried toward it, relieved to see her and Sophie waiting in a small clearing. The air here felt just as heavy, but at least he wasn't alone anymore. Did you find it? Sophie asked. Ethan shook his head. No, but I heard something. Someone was whispering my name. Mia frowned, but before she could reply, they heard footsteps behind them. All three turned, expecting Leo to appear with the box. But no one came. Lao? Mia called. Silence. They waited a few seconds. Then a strange feeling crept over Ethan. The forest had gone completely still. Not even a leaf moved. Maybe he's hiding, Sophie said, though her voice wasn't confident. Trying to scare us. They began walking in the direction of the sound, calling Leo's name. Their voices seemed small in the dark, swallowed by the trees. After a while they stopped and listened. Somewhere far away, there was the faint crunch of leaves, but it wasn't steady like footsteps. It was slow, then fast, then slow again. Almost like someone was moving in circles around them. Ethan felt the hairs on his arms stand up. That's not Leo, he whispered. They moved closer together, shining their flashlights into the darkness. Between the trees, shadows seemed to shift, but it was impossible to tell if it was a trick of the light or something actually moving. Suddenly, from deep in the forest, there was a sharp snap, the sound of a branch breaking. It was followed by a low, dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled over the ground. Sophie gripped Mia's arm. Okay, I don't like this game anymore. They walked faster, calling Leo's name louder, but there was no answer. The only thing they heard was that dragging sound, now fading into the distance. After what felt like hours, they returned to the clearing where they'd started. Ethan scanned the area with his flashlight, and froze. Leo's backpack was lying in the dirt. The straps were ripped, not cut, A few feet away, his flashlight was still on, shining weakly against a tree trunk. But Leo was nowhere in sight. The forest around them was silent again, watching. Mia took a slow breath. "We keep looking," she said, but even she couldn't hide the shake in her voice. And as they stepped back into the dark, Ethan knew Leo was gone. Not lost. Gone. They searched for another 20 minutes, but there was no sign of Leo. The forest felt thicker now, the paths less clear, as if the trees had shifted when they weren't looking. Ethan was walking ahead when his flashlight caught something strange in the middle of the trail. He stopped so suddenly that Sophie bumped into him. "What is it?" she asked. "The wooden box." It was sitting right there, in the center of the path. "That's impossible," Mia whispered. "Leo still had it when we split up." Ethan crouched down, shining his light over it. The carvings on the surface seemed deeper now, the lines darker, as if fresh shadows had been burned into the wood. The lid was slightly open. "Don't," Sophie warned as Ethan reached for it. But he had to know. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside, there was no treasure, no paper, no clue for the game. Instead, it was filled with damp clumps of moss and dark, wet dirt. Nestled in the middle was something small and white. Ethan picked it up and froze. It was a tooth. Human. He dropped it instantly, his hands trembling. The box didn't fall when he let go. It stayed in the air for one long, silent second, as if invisible hands were holding it, before lowering itself gently back to the ground. Sophie gasped. "No. Nope. I'm done. I'm leaving." But when they turned to go back, the path behind them was different. There were no footprints, no familiar turns. The forest seemed to have rearranged itself. "Let's just keep moving forward," Mia said, though her voice shook. They walked past the box, trying to ignore it, but Ethan could swear he heard a faint tapping behind them, like fingernails drumming on wood. 3 slow taps, paused, 3 slow taps again. He didn't look back. After a few minutes, the tapping stopped. But the forest felt heavier, as if the trees themselves were leaning in to listen to them breathe. None of them spoke. They just kept walking, all thinking the same thing. The game wasn't just about finding the box anymore. It was about surviving it. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Their breaths came out in quick white clouds, and even the sound of their footsteps seemed quieter, like the forest was swallowing every noise. Sophie walked beside Ethan now, her flashlight beam bouncing nervously over the ground. "I hate this," she muttered. "We should just scream for help. Someone will hear us." Ethan didn't want to say what he was thinking, that it felt like no one would hear them, no matter how loud they screamed. They kept walking until Sophie's light caught something ahead. "Look," she said, hurrying forward. But as soon as she did, her flashlight flickered. Then it went out completely. "Wait, Sophie, stop," Ethan called. She didn't answer. Her shadow, stretched out long on the dirt, suddenly vanished like it had been erased. Ethan and Mia ran toward the spot, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Sophie was gone. The only thing left was her shoe, lying on its side in the mud. Next to it, deep grooves tore through the ground, for long claw marks, sharp and clean, as if something had dragged itself or her into the forest. Mia crouched down, shining her light on the marks. "These aren't from an animal," she said quietly. "Animals don't leave marks like this." Ethan's heart pounded. "We have to go after her." They followed the claw marks, which led into an even darker part of the woods where no moonlight reached. The ground became softer, wetter, and the smell of rotting leaves grew stronger. After a few minutes, the trail stopped suddenly. The last claw mark ended in a pool of dark water. The surface was completely still, reflecting their flashlights like glass. Ethan stepped closer, but Mia grabbed his arm. "Don't." Something moved under the water. Not a fish. Not anything natural. Just a shape long, thin, and fast. The ripples spread toward them. They stepped back, but a soft whisper drifted through the air, close to Ethan's ear. It was Sophie's voice. "Ethan, help me." He turned, but no one was there. The whisper came again, this time from the other side. Then from behind. The voice was everywhere at once, calling to him. Mia grabbed his hand. We need to leave. Now. They ran without looking back. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Sophie was still following. Only now, she wasn't walking. Ethan and Mia didn't stop running until they reached a narrow path between two crooked trees. They both bent over, breathing hard, their flashlights shaking in their hands. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. Then out of the stillness came a sound: laughter. It was light and familiar, like Sophie's laugh. Ethan straightened up. Did you hear that? Mia nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the darkness. It sounded like Sophie. The laugh came again, a little farther away this time. Then Sophie's voice called out. Ethan. Over here. Ethan's heart jumped. She's alive. He took a step toward the voice, but Mia grabbed his arm hard. Wait. That's not right, she whispered. Sophie didn't sound like that. What do you mean? The tone, it's wrong. It's like… Mia hesitated, glancing into the trees. Like someone is trying to sound like her. Before Ethan could reply, the voice called again, louder. Ethan. Hurry. Against his better judgment, he followed the sound, pushing through low branches. Mia cursed under her breath and followed. They walked until they saw a figure ahead, standing in the shadows. The beam of Ethan's flashlight touched the shape, small, human, about Sophie's height. Relief rushed through him. Sophie. The figure turned slowly. It was Sophie's face, but not her. The eyes were black and hollow, with no light inside them. Her mouth stretched into an impossibly wide grin, the corners tearing at the skin, revealing teeth that were too sharp. Mia yanked Ethan back just as the thing took a step forward. Its movements were jerky, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The voice came again, but now it sounded wrong, layered, like 100 whispers speaking at once. Stay, stay, stay. Ethan's chest tightened. The thing stepped closer, and with each step, its features shifted. Sophie's face blurred and became Leo's. Then Mia's. Then Ethan's own face, staring back at him with that same wide, tearing grin. Mia shouted, "Run!" They turned and ran through the trees, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, the voice called again, now deeper and colder. You can't win the game. Ethan didn't look back. He just ran, knowing that whatever that thing was, it wasn't going to stop following. Ethan and Mia didn't stop running until their legs felt heavy and their lungs burned. When they finally slowed, they realized they were in a place they hadn't seen before. A wide clearing with no grass, only black dirt. The moonlight barely touched the ground here, but Ethan could still see the shapes. They weren't alone. Around the edge of the clearing, tall, human-like figures stood in a perfect circle. There were at least a dozen of them. Their bodies were made of shifting black smoke, their heads tilted slightly as if they were watching. They didn't move, but the shadows beneath them wavered and stretched toward Ethan and Mia like living things. Mia's voice shook. Don't move. In the center of the circle floated the wooden box. It hung in the air without any support, slowly turning. The carvings on it glowed faintly now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan felt a pressure in his chest, as if the air was being pulled out of him. His breath came shorter, faster. One of the shadow figures took a step forward. Its foot didn't make a sound, but the dirt where it stepped darkened, spreading like spilled ink. The others began moving too, closing the circle. The box's lid opened on its own. Inside was nothing but darkness. A darkness that looked deeper than anything Ethan had ever seen. It wasn't just black, it was pulling. The pressure in his chest grew stronger. He gasped, clutching at his shirt, feeling like something invisible was dragging his breath into the box. Mia dropped to her knees, struggling to breathe. Her flashlight flickered and went out completely, leaving only the faint glow of the carvings. Ethan's ears filled with whispers, hundreds of voices speaking at once, but none of them were clear. They weren't speaking to him. They were speaking about him. One shadow reached out a long, smoke-like arm toward him. Its hand had too many fingers, all ending in sharp points. Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know if he was supposed to run, or if moving would make things worse. Then one clear voice spoke inside his head. Play until you win or stay forever. The lid of the box creaked wider. The voice in Ethan's head was cold and calm. Play until you win or stay forever. He glanced at Mia. She was pale, shaking, her hands clawing at her throat as if she couldn't pull air into her lungs. The shadows kept moving closer, their forms shifting like smoke in a storm. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know the rules of this game anymore. Maybe he never had. But something told him the box was the key. He forced himself to step forward. His legs felt heavy, like he was walking underwater. Every step made the shadows lean closer, their long fingers reaching. The box floated just a few feet away now. Its carvings pulsed faster, and the darkness inside it swirled, pulling at his breath, his thoughts, his very will to move. Ethan's vision blurred, but he kept going. If I play, he whispered, I make the rules. As his hands closed around the box, the carvings burned cold against his skin. The whispers in his head grew louder, angry now, as if the shadows didn't want him to touch it. His arms shook, but he gripped it tighter. Let her go, he shouted, turning toward the figures. His voice cracked, but the sound cut through the clearing. The shadows froze. The box trembled in his hands. A feeling rushed through him. Not warmth, but control, like holding a piece of the forest itself. The carvings glowed so bright now they lit up the clearing, and the smoke-like bodies around them shivered. Ethan slammed the lid shut. The effect was instant. The pulling stopped. Mia fell forward, gasping for air. The shadows hissed, not like an animal, but like the wind through 100 dead trees, and stepped back into the darkness. The whispers faded, leaving only the sound of his heartbeat in his ears. Ethan ran to Mia, helping her to her feet. She clutched his arm. What did you do? I don't know, he said honestly. But we have to move. Now. They backed away from the clearing, never turning their backs on the spot where the shadows had stood. The box felt heavier in his hands now, as if it knew it had lost something and wanted it back. Ethan didn't care. He wasn't going to let the forest win. Ethan and Mia moved quickly through the trees, trying not to think about how far they were from the forest's edge. The box felt heavier with every step, almost pulling him backward. The air grew warmer the further they went, and for the first time in hours, Ethan thought they might actually get out. He kept his eyes forward, ignoring the soft whispers that started up again. Ethan, wait. It was Sophie's voice. He didn't turn around. Please help me. Then Leo's voice joined hers. Don't leave us. Mia's grip on his arm tightened. Keep walking. It's not them. The voices grew louder, calling his name over and over, until they sounded like they were right beside him. Something brushed his shoulder, cold and damp, but when he looked, nothing was there. The trees began to thin. Through the gaps, Ethan saw a faint gray light dawn. Relief washed over him. We're almost. Mia stopped. She was staring at something behind him. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling. Ethan, run. He didn't question it. He grabbed her hand and sprinted toward the light. Branches whipped his face, roots grabbed at his feet, but he didn't stop. The voices were screaming now, dozens of them, all in pain and anger. They burst out of the tree line, stumbling onto cold, wet grass. The forest stood behind them, dark and silent, pretending nothing had happened. Ethan collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, still clutching the box. The carvings had gone dull, the glow completely gone. He turned to Mia, but she wasn't there. His chest tightened. Mia. The field was empty. Only the trees stood at the edge, their shadows long in the rising sun. And in those shadows Ethan saw her, standing between two black trunks. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, her mouth moving as if she was calling to him. But no sound came out. The shadows swallowed her, and she was gone. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the place where she'd been. His hands shook as he looked down at the box. It was empty now. When he finally stood, the sun was fully up. Birds sang somewhere far away. To anyone else, it would look like an ordinary morning. But Ethan knew the truth. They had all played the game. And only he came back.